Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the BOCC. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Again, welcome everybody. And first thing on our agenda, we have a district court update with Judge Plewe and Eric Hogue. Gentlemen, would you come on down? And you'll have to turn on the microphone and then pull it as close to your face as you can.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, gentlemen. I appreciate you agreeing to have us over. I'm now the chief judge of the judicial district, and one of the things that talking with Eric that we wanted to do is just open a dialogue with you as the Board of County Commissioners, and hopefully come over perhaps on a biannual basis so that if you have issues you want to talk about with us or questions that you can ask them, and also just to let you know that we're available to chat. And I know we haven't, it hasn't happened over the last couple of years, probably because of COVID and other things, but we wanted to just open that dialogue with you. We had a couple things just to mention to you. First of all, thank you for the gutter project. Actually, this last rainfall we had, we checked everything and we were fine. So it worked.
Great.
Good.
So,
Good.
I don't know if you have anything on that.
No, yeah, we're certainly appreciative of the gutter project. Having, half a dozen to a dozen floor boxes with 4 inches of standing water in them with all of our data and power, and it's obviously disconcerting because obviously you guys operate electronically as well, and that's bulk of our business is that way as well. So it's certainly helped. I think this rain and the moisture we've had this year would have absolutely filled those boxes had we not gone ahead and taken care of that. So we are very thankful for that.
And Eric, while you're talking, maybe you'd like to just tell them how many employees we have over at the district now, which I think will be of interest to all of you because we do provide a lot of good paying jobs here in the community.
We do. So at any given time, we're anywhere between 55 and 60 employees in that building in the Cortez location. And of course, those jobs are full state benefit jobs, are very desirable. Para as a retirement option for staff as well. So we, in a lot of our positions, we had quite a bit of turnover right as COVID kind of hit where people had to make family adjustments, but we've had some stability now. And I think, that a lot of those individuals that are employed there are members that are generational here in this community. They're not transplants from somewhere else. The majority of our staff are generational staff that their families are from here and they've been born and raised here as well. So we have a high number of local employee residents that we employ.
Yeah. And so just as a couple of other items, we're grateful for the security we have at the courthouse and the support that we receive. I know Sheriff Nowlin's here, but we know that's funded primarily by all of you, and we're grateful for that, and we'll certainly cooperate in the current grant cycle to try to get that grant funding for the courthouse and security.
Which just opened up, and I know I emailed the sheriff. I know he got a copy of it, so you'll be seeing some planning on that as well, which will be a continuation of that personnel services and whatever else the sheriff has deemed appropriate, as we'll talk about as he works through that process. But that grant process did just open up for the next fiscal year for the grant cycle.
And we've just started meeting quarterly with the sheriff's office, the court staff, and the sheriff, so that we can improve communication there and just generally make it safe for the public. We know it's a place where members of the county come to resolve their disputes, and they ought to have a safe place to come and do that. The facility itself is beautiful, and we get a lot of comments on it. We want to make sure people feel comfortable when they come there. And the other thing is, I'm required, I guess, by statute to talk to you every year about pretrial services. So I will just say we're grateful for pretrial services. We know that it's a funding issue, but we do believe that in the long run, and I think the sheriff would agree with this, it saves the county money. The because we can get people out of jail while they're awaiting adjudication, because it does cost quite a bit of money to keep people in the jail, and it keeps the numbers in the jail down, which I think will help all of you long-term as you meet the staffing and frankly, space needs of the jail, keep the jail from overcrowding. So we do have pretrial services. A lot of rural counties don't, and so we are grateful for that. And some of it we're required to do by statute when, for example, someone's arrested on DUI, we have to do it. And so we're grateful to the sheriff for doing that. So
I think a few other things that I just want to highlight as well is our appreciation of the facility staff and how responsive they've been over the last several years, both with COVID, with cleaning. The housekeeping contract recently changed. We're appreciative of that change in the contract. We were having some struggles with the previous contractor. The new person is someone that had been cleaning the courthouse prior, has some familiarity. We've noticed an improvement in that, so we're thankful for the county to be paying attention to the maintenance and the upkeep of the facility, and housekeeping is a big piece of that. It does see a lot of people every single day. Another piece I want to be thankful for the facilities team is our snow load this year was pretty significant. They did the absolute best they could in managing the parking lot at the courthouse, both public and the private lot, the sidewalks. I know they got a lot of stuff to take care of. They got a small number of guys to do it. They were trying to be there early and get it done early. We did have, I think, 8 documented slip and falls in the courthouse secure parking lot where we had employees. We have work comp insurance, and our third-party insurer is dealing with those. A couple of them did result in some significant injuries that we're working with the employee and our work comp insurer for that as well, but not the fault of the facilities guys. I mean, they can't get that lot 100% dry and clean every day. It just can't be done, and we recognize that, and so we're having conversations with staff about paying attention, looking outside your vehicle when you're walking. Just because it might look dry, it may not be dry. So we've been having ongoing conversations with them about that. The maintenance guys did step up their salting. That comes with a bit of a downside too with some of the concrete over there, but it's a balancing act. But I think they did a really good job in trying to keep it open and accessible for both the public and for the staff. So they've been doing a really good job. They've been very attentive to everything we need. So I don't want to leave them out and be remiss that they shouldn't receive some acknowledgement for, I think, doing a good job in supporting the building the best they can.
yeah. And they were helpful with our staff transition, with new judges coming in, helping with the offices. And we stayed open. I don't think we closed some hours, but we never closed the courthouse this year, did we?
No, we had some limited.
I know some other government agencies closed, but we stayed open, and so they helped us stay open.
Yeah, we had a delayed opening and some early closures, but we were still open, 6 to 7 hours of each working day, even on those closure days. And they were there to help do that, even though county government may have been operating on different hours, or the fact that they had, I don't know how many other facilities to attend to make sure that they're open as well. So they did a good job, and we're thankful for them.
And we actually had a jury trial during one of those snow
We did.
issues, so we're bringing hundreds of people over there to that building.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else unless you have any questions for us or anything you need from us.
On your
Okay.
court security grant,
Yeah.
is it at an adequate level? Do you know?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't want to speak for the sheriff. I think that was probably answered
So-
best by.
I can tell you from my perspective as a judge, we are grateful for the security we have. We don't have any issues. And we're thankful to the sheriff. He's providing what we believe is adequate security
Right.
for our needs. Otherwise, we would tell you and we'd tell him.
I would say, for perspective though, we have the X-ray magnetometer. We have, I think, upwards of 50 cameras in the facility in the exterior that require someone to monitor the entirety. That's their job, is monitoring all of the cameras. Our courtrooms are cameraed, our public spaces, all of our spaces cameraed. So there's someone monitoring that. There's someone running the X-ray magnetometer. If we have a high volume of people, we need to move 2 people to the X-ray machine magnetometer. So the days where we have big jury call, or Wednesdays, which is our high traffic county court day, we'll have 70, 80, 100 people lined up waiting to come in. If you've been called for jury duty, you may have been standing at the end of the sidewalk, which is down on Park Street, waiting to get in the building. So I would say from a staffing standpoint, when you have, I think we have 4 deputies in the building, essentially full-time. When you have 1 regulated to cameras and 2 regulated to manning the magnetometer and the x-ray machine, that only leaves 1 person really to respond to 4 courtrooms and a hallway that is 330 feet long.
So,
And so commissioners,
go ahead.
last year we did, and for several years prior, we've applied for the court security grant for the rural funding, and we did actually lose a position last year. We were hoping to gain an additional position, and so, when I look at the purpose of that rural security grant, I mean, it really is designed for counties like this, and so I'm sure we'll try again, and I hope
And
that.
I think you should. And I don't want to interrupt, but that grant was cut by both the State Court Administrator's Office and the legislature during COVID reductions. Part of that money was taken away. They're rolling $500,000 back into it for this on top of the funding, but they're also looking to expand that amount of money that's accessible to counties as well. So there is hopefully more money coming back, but almost every county in the state that receives it received a cut last year as a result of the legislature, that money being redirected away into different COVID-related responses. So our hope is that that the sheriff would go back to seek that full funding that was there in the past, and hopefully we'll be successful in getting that. In speaking with the program administrator, I was in Denver about a week ago, and I spoke with him specifically about this. Their goal is to hopefully restore the counties that lost with the new allocation of money that came in, recognizing that 500,000 isn't enough to sustain the 30-plus counties that are eligible for that grant money. So, but there is an acknowledgement that they would like to bring counties back to where they were, because they recognize that when they took the money away, someone had to come up with the money locally to provide the same level of security. So that means the county and the sheriff's budget was picking up that additional FTE. So, Ian, I appreciate you clarifying that.
And I would urge that the commission even ask for additional money from what we were getting before, because
And
quite
that's
frankly,
exactly where I was
mean,
headed.
it's just not covering our costs there.
Because, no,
So-
it's not. And I think, Sheriff, didn't you say we lost 2 positions? Or we only have 2 that are funded?
We asked for 3 and they gave us 1. We had 2 before. Okay, yep.
So I guess to encourage, to help us, because at the end of the day, you guys know how it works, that if we don't have enough funding, then we're not, there comes a point to where what do we pick and choose from?
Right. Yeah, one of the goals of the grant is to not offset the entirety of the statutory obligation, like of the sheriff's office, to provide that security to the court. But it's to provide an augmentation to what the local sheriff's office can provide. And so while I don't think there will ever be enough money in there to fund it at 100%
Sure.
of what would be necessary, I would certainly, I know Judge Plewe will be in support of, and I will have conversations with the folks that manage that program at the State Court Administrator's Office. I was very vocal when they made the cut, because they actually didn't tell anybody they were making the cuts. They just sent out award letters, and 50% of the funding in Montezuma County was gone. And they didn't alert anybody that this was even coming. They just made half an allocation award. And I was pretty vocal about how that looked for those of us that have to manage relationships locally. Like, it's easy for someone to make a cut at 400 miles away, but
Yeah, we're the ones.
we're the
sitting
ones
here.
that have to sit here and
Sitting in front of
explain
you.
Right.
what it does and what it does to the working relationships that we have. And so I know I'm having conversations with those program managers about the importance of at least restoring where we were. Beyond that, I would be skeptical to say beyond that, but a restoration of where we were, I think, is more plausible.
Well, it's at least a start and a beginning, and I appreciate the dialogue that we're having right now, because these are the conversations that we need to be having, one of, is it adequate, or is it over adequate, or is it under adequate, what we're providing in there right now?
I don't
Because
think
then
we're
it all
overstaffed, no.
I mean,
relates to the funding source, and if the funding's not there, then it's like, hey.
Right.
Well, and I know Mr. Anderson was there during one of our recent jury trials, and you see the volume we do on those days. And it's tough. I think it strains the staff of the sheriff's office on those busy days we have. And so some days, you know, you come over there on a Friday morning, you may think, why are there 4 people here? But if you come over there on a Monday during a jury call or a Tuesday, and you see there are hundreds of people in the building, and you have victims' families and defendants' families, and you're grateful for the security that we have, and you know that they're, you know, the one thing that's always interesting that we try to convey to the state court administrator's office is, yeah, our population isn't the same, but we deal with the same problems they deal with anywhere else. And our people that live here deserve to be secure, just like people in Arapahoe County and Adams County, and we deal with very serious cases just like they do. And so we'll champion the cause from our, you know, from our perspective, and right now we do not think we're overstaffed, but we don't think we're understaffed either. We're not coming here to complain about it. We know the grant process is there, and we'll do whatever we can to support the sheriff's application, and please call and talk to us about it. You know, Eric knows more about it than I do, just because he deals with the details, but if, you know.
Well, I know last year one of the things that we brought forward was that our property tax revenues are down because of the Kinder Morgan cuts. And I think that's an important thing to convey to the folks who are doling out that grant, because, I mean, it does impact our ability to provide security and to provide funding for court security and for the sheriff's office. And so if there's anything that I can do on my end or that the county can do on our end to help get that information forwarded to the right people, let us know too.
Well, I think what would be important is when the sheriff submits his application, if the board just includes a letter with that recognizing the necessity for having security at the facility, I think is just one very good step in saying that we've had these conversations and we have this ongoing relationship, because that's one of the things, much like underfunded, that assisted in building the courthouse through grant allocations, was the working relationship that existed between the county and the court. That was one of the things that was highlighted in the applications that Montezuma County submitted for those grants, that I think it was in excess of 1.5 million that was given to the county at the end of the entire construction project for that. And one of the things that was highlighted by the board to me specifically was the relationship that existed between the Board of County Commissioners and the court, because this isn't what happens everywhere else in the state. And I think you go to the county commissioners of Colorado meetings and you see what the relationships are like with some counties and the court, and ours is not like that. And I think that's what's very helpful in us having some success in these applications, is the fact that we do have a healthy working relationship.
And if you have questions or concerns as you're going through that grant application process, I mean, that's one of the reasons we're here today, is to just extend that hand to say, call us, talk with us about this, and we'll work through issues that you have or questions you might have. And, I was pleased when we did the swearing in that you was able to show you around the courthouse. Please feel free to come by anytime. And, we'll show you what's going on. If you have interest in the security that's there, we can show you the security that we do have at the building and where that money goes.
I think it's more for the fact that how do we fund it? It's not just Kinder Morgan, as we look at what the state's doing right now with their, valuations are up, obviously, but then they've moved the rates down, which is a decrease for us in funding. If they're not gonna fund it, we can't keep making it up.
Right.
And that's just the reality of it.
I know there is a legislative for FY25 where they're looking to increase the court security cash fund up to a total of $3 million to be available to grant awards. As you know, DOLA runs the census to determine who's high priority not, and that list is kind of done every year to where it goes. And so the number of counties that qualify changes slightly from fiscal year to fiscal year. I would still anticipate that at a funding level of twice what used to be available in the court security cash fund to be available. I'm not sure what the parameters are going to be for that allocation, but I would say if that happens in '25, that there is an acknowledgement by both the state court administrator's office, the local in fields where they're getting this pressure from. I mean, we are pressuring them that this is not enough to do more, which is how we ended up with finding a sponsor to hopefully run some bills for us that will increase the allocation, and it will come from general fund. A lot of it used to be generated by cash surcharges that were on case filings. They're looking to actually make money available from the general fund so that it has then a longer sunset to it, and it has our ability to supplement that money a little bit more. If those are successful, then I would say that the likelihood of seeing some increased funding in Montezuma County is more likely, but that is 1 year away before that would even be introduced. And I'm sure Commissioners Colorado will have that as a discussion point, because you're not alone in sharing that the cost of, the security at courthouses is high. It is high.
I guess.
We seem to be climbing the ladder as far as crime in the state of Colorado too.
I think statewide, but particularly in rural areas, we are dealing with more serious matters than we've ever dealt with in the past. And, I hope you don't place that at the feet of the
No.
judiciary. I'm just joking. But it is true. We are being stressed. Our staff
Yes.
is stressed.
And hopefully that would play a little part in their deciding how to fund things, because the more crime increases, the more we see stress on our judicial system.
We had at the last chief judges meeting that I attended, we met with our legislators, and I met with them that represent us here, and that was expressed overwhelmingly to the legislators that represent Western Colorado, is that we're dealing with, as you see, and as I'm sure the sheriff sees, we're dealing with things that, frankly, 15 years ago, we weren't dealing with. And we're dealing with individuals coming through the system that strain our system. When I started off doing this job, we didn't have full-time security at the county courthouse. It wasn't a good thing,
Yeah,
but, there's just no way we could do that now. Unfortunately. I wish we could go back to the days where we didn't have to have a deputy there, but we're just not there anymore, and that's.
Well, again, anything you guys can do to help us with that funding mechanism is greatly appreciated. Because, where we sit, everything comes down to dollars and cents. And we look at it almost on a daily basis of where are we going, where are we headed, and what does it look like. So I do appreciate your help with that.
We will commit to doing that.
Absolutely.
And I will also pass along to our staff the kudos that you've given to them for the job that they've done. And I'm glad that our resolution fixed the problems that we were having there.
We are very grateful.
We are very, yes.
But there again, it had to be a dialogue where all of us were over there looking at the same thing to know what was going on.
Right.
So appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
appreciate you being here.
All right, thank you.
It's good,
Thanks.
good to have this conversation.
Yeah, we'll see you
Thanks,
again in the
guys.
fall. But
All
if you
right.
see us sooner, let us know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Next up, we have our discussion on our financial policy. Travis, do you want to pull that up?
Commissioner, I wonder if we should jump around a little bit. I know we've
Yeah.
got some attorneys in the
can.
room and elected officials.
Okay, well, yeah, we can do that. We can move on down to 1, 2, 3. For the proposed amendment to project funding agreement with SHS, Mr. Lovett, come on down along with, I guess, a board member?
Yeah,
Is that-
he's president.
Brandon Johnson's our newly elected
chairman of the Montezuma County Hospital District Board, and since he's here, Robert Dobry is our secretary treasurer. I didn't realize he was going to be here, and so I told him he should
Got
go
two
ahead
of them.
and join the conversation. And I spoke to Ian about this last week. We're a little bit ahead of the game in dealing with this issue. This isn't really something that we need, any immediate action or anything from the commissioners, but just kind of knowing that these things sometimes take time. We didn't really want to be in a position that when we did need a signature from the county, as you can see the indenture that I provided to Mr. McLaren last week, the signature page does have a line that was inserted for the Montezuma County to place their part of this agreement. Just a little history. I don't know, I'm sure maybe some of you remember it just kind of generally being in the community, but I don't believe any of you were on the Board of County Commissioners at the time that all of this was finalized in 2015 and 16. The new medical office building and the new inpatient wing at the hospital was funded by a $40 million bond issuance that was ultimately, the bond was ran through Montezuma County as what is called a conduit issuer, meaning the county has no obligations under the bonds. There's no liability specifically through the county, nor the Montezuma County Hospital District is there a specific obligation or liability under the bonds. The bonds are all, the entire repayment obligation falls under Southwest Health Systems. But due to certain tax savings and the structuring of the bonding at that time, the banks and our bond councils believed that this was the best way to issue these bonds through the conduit issuer process, utilizing Montezuma County to do that. Since the original issuance, everything has, there's, as far as repayments and all that, things have gone very well. The sales tax that the district passed along with the original issuance of the bonds in 2015 has well surpassed the expectations and the pro formas that were ran regarding the repayment obligation. But with that being said, there have been some identified issues within the hospital campus specific to just aging equipment, not the building itself, but equipment. And with this being a critical access hospital, funding no different than the judicial system or any of our local services, funding can be an issue. And so the banks kind of actually came up with a pretty creative way to free up some money for a multitude of years, in which the current repayment structure, which is, it's not exactly $303,000, it's $202,900 something. I always call it $302,900 and change. So I always just call it $303,000 is essentially the monthly payment. The banks have come up with an ability under some IRS safe harbor provisions where they can defer a big percentage of the current principal obligations due every month and lower that payment to approximately $169,000. And so there's some agreements that we're trying to work through. Nothing is set in stone. Like I said, we're here well ahead of whenever we would need the county to make any decisions regarding this. We're trying to get SHS, where we're working through different things with them that would ultimately create a specific fund with those savings, those monthly savings going from 303 to approximately 170, savings obviously is created there, and then that savings would result in a very specific fund being created that the money could only go toward, it couldn't go into operations or anything specific to SHS. The district would actually have a big say in all of the application of those funds as they grow in an account that would be controlled by the banks. Banks also want to ensure that their building is well taken care of. But ultimately, that savings would create this large amount of money that could then be put right back into that hospital facility and campus to ensure that the currently aging equipment is replaced before it has any failures that would obviously lead to interruption of medical services. So we're trying to stay ahead of the game here, not only with the replacement of equipment, but with putting this in front of the county to be able to do their due diligence related to this agreement and to initially ask us any questions if and when working through the banks. I mean, we have the bonds that were issued. There's what they call it a syndicate. I don't know why that makes me laugh. There's a crime syndicate.
Are they from Memphis?
I don't know. It's like Dick Tracy or something. I don't know. But there is ultimately 6 banks involved, and so I mean, just through that, I mean, this takes a little bit of time. And like I said, ultimately, when we need these documents executed, we're talking several weeks down the road. But instead of we felt through my conversation with Mr. McLaren that this may be a little bit of a better scenario to initially put this in front of the Board of County Commissioners rather than the open, public meeting to allow us to have a conversation regarding it and address any specific questions. Of course, I'm sure all of you labored hard over this amendment to the indenture agreement and probably fell asleep multiple times going through it. So if you have
Well, I actually did labor over it, but when I started reading attorney talk, I quit laboring and went on about my way.
Yeah, and you just fell asleep, left it up to Mr. McLaren.
Yeah, I just went for
Yeah.
a walk because I couldn't understand most of it anyway.
That word indenture tends to wake you up.
Right? Yeah. It's better than servitude, but it's not much.
So I pretty much gave it to our attorney and said, okay, break this down and tell me really what it means to us. Thank you for the presentation. So with that, I'm going to ask our attorney, after reading it, what do you see here that are concerns or no concerns, or what is your take on it, Ian?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, at this point in time, there's not really risk to the county
Right.
in this agreement. Now, certainly a concern that jumps out to me is that there's a public perception issue here, quite frankly. And if we're going to allow the hospital to push things back and push back repayment on this thing, they passed the tax, and they're getting that tax money, and now we're going to kick the ball down the road, so to speak. Now, I don't know that that's necessarily a problem for this board, but it certainly is something to think about. Is that what the public had in mind?
I think that's a good question or concern. When that tax was passed. Now, with the initial tax was passed in 2015. Last May, the tax was, the sunset part of the tax was removed, and so the tax does not expire in 2030 anymore. But the other thing that was done last May was it allowed for the sales tax revenues to not just be specifically applied to those projects that were completed back in 15 and 16. There was a restriction in the original ballot language that the tax had a very, very limited application. And so now that it's been opened up and we can use it for items specific to the facility itself, not just repayment of the medical office building, not just repayment of the inpatient wing. It's broadened now to be able to assist in like what we're dealing with now with some aging equipment. And the reason for the structure that's been presented by the banks is if we don't do this structure, then we don't have really any other way to immediately create some additional funds for the replacement of this equipment. One reason is because we're not in a good position to refinance right now. Like we could just refinance the whole thing and call the bonds and not necessarily issue them through Montezuma County, but unfortunately, right after our sales tax passed, the interest rates spiked to a level that refinancing is actually not even allowed by the bond language. I don't even know that would be a good idea anyway, because we're currently have a net effective interest rate of about, I think it's 4.83%, where if we refinance now, it would be significantly higher. And so this was the bank's creative way of not, I mean, I agree in a way it is kicking the can down the road, but it's also ultimately freeing up some money for some needs that need to be addressed right now. And so I think we're trying to balance, what is best for the public? Do we just lock in and not restructure the payment schedule and run a higher risk of needing funds available to replace equipment? Or do we restructure the payment, which from just a pure repayment schedule is ultimately, there will be more money owed to the banks. It's addressing current needs.
I clarify too on equipment, he's not talking about medical equipment. We're talking about air handlers, stuff to keep the facility open.
Correct. The facilities, yeah,
Yeah.
that's really what the hospital district takes care
Correct.
of are the facilities. So, yeah, I think we all get that.
I know for a fact that the air handlers went down for a portion and they almost had to shut down the ER. But they didn't get there, they worked around it, but it's stuff like that, and then when you get the new quote from the guys doing the billing, and you kind of it takes your breath away.
How much are there? How much are you looking at? You think you're going to need to do this?
So we are we're utilizing an engineering firm that we've utilized in the past to really give us an updated list of the most critical items that in their mind need to be addressed. Just from the life expectancy of each air handler or whatever piece of equipment that we're looking at. So we don't have an exact bid because we don't, the list itself has not been finalized. But we believe, I mean, with the close to additional $140,000 a month that would be created by doing something like this, that number is going to fluctuate a little bit based on how much sales tax revenue comes up each month. That would be an average based off, how this new reamortization of the bond schedule would look. But on average, we would garner about $140,000 a month. We're confident that we're going to be able to knock out a very good portion of the items that need to be addressed.
Anything else, Ian?
Not at this point in time. I'm going to continue to look at it. I think in my mind, getting real clear financial pictures before you sign this would be a good idea for the board. Because, certainly it sounds like maybe the can's going to need to be kicked down the road a little bit to get the facilities to where they need to be. But does it need to be kicked this far down the road? I think that's a question that you guys might want to ask.
Right. So how long will it take your engineering firm to give you somewhat of an idea
I would expect that the list itself should be,
The list is done, we prioritized. It's just a matter of
So-
month or two getting our prices done. And then, of course, you gotta realize, once we get that done, it's gonna change overnight.
Oh, yeah,
Normally
no,
going up,
we're well
but
aware
we've
of
got close. There's
how
probably
rapidly
40 items on that list, and
things are changing.
we're only looking at the top 10 right now.
It's like building a bridge.
Yep.
ultimately, all of these items, I mean, like I said, will be addressed as effectively as we can when hopefully the rates balance back out and we're able to refinance in a more reasonable fashion and economic time frame. But the specific structure that the bank has presented, we can only do this for a 5-year period.
Rob, your sales tax receipts pretty good, pretty stable.
They are. I mean, they're obviously cyclical, seasonal,
Right.
but they are, and they've been steadily increasing over the time that I've been treasurer. Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
No, I'd like to see your list, I mean,
Yeah.
which obviously they've identified it, and now you guys have to prioritize it to what, but just kind of like what Ian said, it'd be nice to see that list and go from there.
You also mentioned financials. I mean, you looking just specifically at MCHD financials or?
I think that's all you guys are talking about is just MCHD, right? Just the facilities are all you're taking
Right.
care of.
When's your next meeting?
12th?
Yeah, 12.
12th?
Do you guys ever have participation in your meetings?
Sometimes, it depends.
Well, we
As
always
far
have
as public.
SHS participation, because we require SHS to come to our meetings and give certain presentations. Yeah, public participation is not incredibly common, you know. So,
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
Until you see some numbers and what they're trying to do, boy.
okay,
Okay.
all right,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Time.
Thank you,
Thank
gentlemen.
you, gentlemen.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'll clean up.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I was gonna have Rob stay here since he was right there at the table.
He has quite a few documents. Do we
Huh?
want to, he has quite a few documents. Do we want to let the sheriff go?
Whoever wants to come up next, come on
Yeah, rock,
down.
paper, scissors, whatever you guys want to do.
I can go all over this. I can go all over this thing. Which one do you want to talk about first, Sheriff?
Where am I? MC.
Let's talk about the dispatch IGA agreement.
We haven't signed it. We haven't signed it, and he wants us to. Oh, where'd it go? Rob's. There we go.
Did you receive the IGA?
Hmm?
Gave it to you, so.
Yeah, the
We do have it.
the dispatch agreement.
I didn't bring a.
Yeah, we've got it.
I only got one, so.
Doesn't like you.
So my question, Sheriff, is what are the changes in this? Obviously, because every contract that we're looking at right now, this is an updated contract year to year, which makes sense to me, but what are the changes?
Should have changed that to 3 years.
Real quick, Sheriff, your mic.
Way to go.
still. Yeah.
Okay,
I got a
they
whole
want,
rack of batteries if we need it.
oh, really? Yeah. They wanted to change that to 3 years, and I was
No.
really adamantly against that. It needs to stay annually to be signed, because things change, and you need to be aware of what that is and what they're asking. So, as far as I know, that's the only thing. There's just been a lot of talk about equipment coming out of the the 911 surcharge and so on and so forth. That's in your ballpark. But you know, some of it is useful, some of it I don't know.
So under the terms, it says that this agreement shall be renewed in 1-year increments. Is that?
That's right. Yeah, that's the way it should be.
So it's not saying 3 years, it's still 1 year.
Yes, right. They wanted to change it to 3, but we got that
It's
nixed to where
yeah.
it's
It's
just 1.
at 1 year right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, commissioners, I mean, I don't know that this is necessarily a point that the sheriff wants to bring up, but in looking at this, one of my concerns is there's a provision, if you look under, it's on page 4, under B, capital equipment purchases, and it talks about the equipment purchases being owned by all of the parties in this authority. I don't like that language, quite frankly. The equipment that's purchased by the E911 board is owned by the E911 board authority, not by the city, not by everybody else on this agreement. And I think that's language that I would recommend changing. I think it's a key piece of language in this agreement. And listen, just by signing this agreement, in essence, we're signing anything that we purchase over to collective ownership.
Yeah.
Which then we get in the situation where we had with the,
Exactly.
that we just dealt
Exactly.
with
That,
the
that,
last few months. So
that needs to be amended
Well,
and stricken.
looking down at page 6, under B forfeiture, it kind of relates to the same thing.
Yep.
Because it says, you will forfeit all right, title, and interest in and to any property or monies, liquid or investment funds. And I'm not ready to give up any of our property or our funds or anything else.
And
So
you should.
was this
No.
added language or is this language that was there
I
previously?
This is the first one I've looked at because this is the first one that's come up since I've been here, I think. And so what we need to do, I'm gonna need to reach out and get a Word document and mark it up. And I mean, I just saw it when it came out on the agenda. So it needs to be marked up and messed with, and then we'll bring it back up at that time.
I appreciate you doing that. I do. You know, I don't, this is something that they've created. I'm not on board with all of it, so I appreciate you looking at it.
So what do you have else that you're not on board with so that we can, as we
Those
mark
things
it
that
up?
we just heard.
Anything else?
And I'll tell you that I wish that there would be some way that they could still give us a figure on cost per call and what a maximum amount of funding that we should even have to reach, because it's going up every year and it will go up every year. And there's no control over that.
They did give us a cost per call. The last one that we saw last year was like 17, I thought it was 1784. 17 something. You saw that one too, right?
Yeah, I
That's
saw
c-
that.
That's cost per
That's-
call now. I don't know what.
I don't know
with
how
the
they got to that.
increase-
That's the thing. How do you come up with that number? That's where we had some discussions with. And it's one of those things that most everybody seems to be on board, but three agencies. So, I mean, the fire department's always going to be about a 1%. They're not very much. So.
No, the fire department's everybody else. I think the maximum, the other ones that we saw were 6%, and then they go to us and the PD, which are like 40-ish plus percent, 42%.
We're definitely paying for the majority. Now, this year it changed a little bit, or this last year, but you're going to see that go back and forth. You will. I'm almost sure of it.
Yeah, but they probably don't deviate a whole lot, do they?
No,
5%?
no, they don't. But
Us, them, us, them.
it's always been a concern to me that cost has never, we've never come to an agreement about a set fee annually, and we should, so that when it was last year, when they produced their budget and whatnot, there were a lot of things in those line items that I saw that were really, had nothing to do with the dispatch center. And I called them on it, and they changed it a couple of times that took out some of those line items and stuff. But it's something that you really have to watch to make sure that what we're paying for is relevant, and really it needs to be that way.
So Sheriff, when you contemplate a set fee, can you explain exactly what that would look like, just so I have an understanding when I reach out?
Sure. If you look at just taking an average over the last 5 years and coming up with what that amount would be annually, that would be something that would be less than, it would at least have a ceiling on it. Now, I don't know that they'll ever agree to that, but I'm saying that that's the way it should be. We can't be paying for everything that's in there that we're not utilizing that. And I was concerned about what E911 was paying for that wasn't coming off of what we're being charged, okay? And so where that is at, I don't know. And it's going to take some discussions between, both boards to work that out. The accountability committee is just that. That's it. All we can do is we listen to the new information, what they plan on doing, what's been happening, the changes that are made, and then going forward with it. And every one of those boards from every one of those agencies are relayed that information, and I share those agendas, with you, so you see what was on the agenda. Those change, okay, and as soon as those actually come out, I believe Commissioner Lindsay said that he wanted to be there, and so you'll get that information right up front. They have a city council person on there now, because they get 2 voices. Okay,
Yeah.
not 1, but 2. So that to me is a little unfair, but whatever.
So I have a follow-up question. When we look at the last 5 years, say take an average of the last 5 years,
Yeah.
have you seen significant fluctuations in your call volume over the last 5 years?
It's up and down a bit, as you know. It'll go from anywhere from 18,000 to 20,000 a year, but it certainly doesn't stay at 20,000 a year. Compared to how they figure out how the calls are adjusted when you have multiple officers on one incident, okay? That was a big discussion that we had when you had, let's say, a fire, and you had 3 different fire departments, plus a law enforcement agency, plus an ambulance, the EMS, and everybody else there. How are you splitting those up? I do like the fact that in wildfires, emergencies, or disasters, it's just one call. And that's the way that it should be, because people are coming and going and doing many different things all at the same time. And that's really the right thing to do. And so I was very appreciative to hear that it's just one call. That's great, because every time you get on the radio and you have new units come in and stuff, it can add up if you start tracking calls.
So I have another question. I'm just going to keep
Go ahead.
peppering them just because I'm curious as we work through these terms. And I don't have a lot of experience with dispatch centers. So if you look at dispatch centers around the state, is it typical that they charge on a call-by-call basis, or would it be more typical that they charge more like you're talking about?
About what I'm talking about, yeah. Except for there are some dispatch centers that are actually at that, and they surface multiple different agencies. And like Westco, for example, that's really a very expensive dispatch center. And the users are not happy with that, because those costs just constantly increase. And it's going to get to the point where a lot of these agencies may not be able to afford that. And that's why looking at opportunities of what others out there, what other choices do we have? is so important to look at. And that's kind of the way it is. That's the way it should be.
Do we have anything available to us as an
Well,
alternative?
I
in
think
case something
soon,
goes
and
down?
I'm hoping that I'll be able to bring this to you.
I was gonna say, we've asked that question before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
years in a
they're
row.
almost at the level now with dispatchers that they may say yes, and be able to come here and talk about what those costs are and what would have to transpire in order for those costs to be more reasonable. It's not the amount that we're paying for now, it's a lot less. And it's just the same, if not better service, 24 hours a day. So, you know, it's something we have to compare, and really we should, in order to reduce those costs. A lot of that equipment in the back in the history, that's where I really had a problem, is that, you know, the county paid for a lot of that, and the state gave up a lot of that
Yeah,
too.
the E911 board owns all the equipment.
Yeah.
That's the way I understand it through our contracts.
Yeah.
And what we fund. We own the equipment, or the E911
Right.
board.
Right.
And the E911 authority is a little bit different than the county,
It
too.
is.
I mean, it's
Correct.
its own separate
Yeah.
entity.
Correct.
Yeah.
But still, that's what funds the equipment.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And what that authority funds shouldn't just be going into the collective ownership of everybody who signs this IGA.
No,
That's
that was my
that's not
concern
right.
when I read this.
That's not right.
And that's where I think that the county attorney and the city attorney need to communicate with that contract, about that wording and stuff, because, you know, that is right. That's the way it should be. It should be where they don't claim it all if something were to happen. If you didn't pay your bill, or you walked away, whatever, okay?
Right, it just, that equipment doesn't become part of the,
No, it doesn't. In fact, it should be able to move a portion of that equipment belonging to the county, an E911 for the county, okay? Outside the municipality needs to move. And that's the way that it should be.
so do we have a more updated number that I have not seen, Travis? Because that's the number per call that I saw last, that we've all had, we've all gotten.
Yeah,
Obviously, with inflationary rates of employment, benefits, so on and so forth, that does have to go up.
it does go
The
up.
city doesn't have
Yeah.
a choice but to raise that. So,
Mhm.
I mean, what,
Well, we don't
the-
have
the
any
cost
say
for-
about that. The users don't have a say about that. That's been the biggest issue. You just don't have a say about that. When they're supposed to be working for all of the entities, the agencies, you don't have input with that. And I wish that there would be, for some of those costs and some of those things that they do and they budget for. But, I mean, maybe it's all appropriate, but, I mean, there's no say in it, though. That's the thing. It's all under the city of Cortez.
so
We-
looking at those line items that they sent to us, did you see anything that, I mean, it
Not
all
now,
looked-
not now. It's changed quite a bit. And I appreciate they took a lot of those things that were questionable out of there. Yeah, that we shouldn't have been having to pay for.
Because everything that Kelly sent to us, as I reviewed it, nobody brought anything else up.
Right,
And that cost per call, that, I want to say it was 1780 something, but,
yeah,
I mean, it seemed appropriate.
yeah. I mean, well, again, I don't know. I mean, it's just like, the audits and stuff that were asked for, I think they're only up to 2019 now, if I'm not mistaken, so. I don't know.
No,
Yeah,
I think you said that
they're done, aren't they,
they
Rob?
finished everything. All the audits are done.
2021?
Oh, see, that's what
Yeah.
the finance
Pretty-
director told us at the
Pretty
last meeting.
close to being 100% current.
Yeah,
Oh, well,
because they were auditing concurrently, you know,
okay.
they had 21 and 22 going, and
All I know is what they showed us on their clear.gov. And that it's at 2019.
they're
so
getting close. you
Maybe
know,
they are.
Be
Yeah,
fully,
they should be.
but
Yeah.
the ones that we were looking at and were questioning are done,
Okay,
because that was done under a previous administration, and
yeah,
there was a lot of charges in some of those that
Yeah.
weren't appropriate.
Exactly.
In my mind.
And I think it's gotten a lot better. There's no doubt about it.
Right. I mean, we got a new city manager and he's working diligently
yeah,
to get
he
this
is.
brought up and caught
bet.
up and
Yeah,
So
you bet.
we really only have two items for you to discuss then. One, the one-year term, which is already in there, which is good, and then basically the equipment.
Yeah.
That it stays with the
Yep.
manual on the board, not, gotcha.
Yep. So I'll reach out and get
Okay.
a version to mark up, and we'll just start discussing and try to get back in front of you guys as soon as we can.
Okay.
Are we the only ones, Sheriff, that has not yet signed off on?
I don't know. I think it was us
I don't
and
think the hospital has.
somebody else, yeah. I don't know. Didn't say.
Well, none,
It's just that,
all these signatures have to be changed because a lot of them, obviously, from what we just dealt with, are not even current
Yeah.
for right now.
Yeah.
Looking at the signature pages. So I
Yeah,
think
the
we have
signature
time.
line is pretty outdated.
Yeah, we have time for you to get back. So when do we have to have this signed off on?
I don't know, whenever you sign it, I guess. It was supposed to have
Yeah.
been signed like in January, February. So I got it and delivered it to you in February, so I don't know. Some of the other agencies' boards have already signed it, but I don't know if all of them have.
We got it in February?
Yeah, I handed that to you. That was the only copy I got,
We got this in February?
but
Said
That's
it'd let
why-
me know when the meeting was. I'd have been there and got you a copy.
Good.
so.
Okay, well, deal with that. Okay? All right. Okay, Carver Field, let's see, we're going back up into the item number 3 then, is where we would be. If you're following along in the agenda, would be the discussion on the pay scale.
As you can see, there's been changes in, as far as in supervision and whatnot, that kind of consolidates a lot, eliminating one division supervisor that has to supervise actually 2 divisions in a task force.
Okay, so this is item, or this is the third pay scale. Obviously, like you said, you're trying to combine one.
Yeah, I reduced trying to bring it in line to where we were at the first of the year. That's what I've tried to do with that.
Man, is that thing bouncing all over the place, or is it just my eyes?
It's the screen.
I was gonna say, golly.
Mine's all right.
So, actually, Sheriff, I do have a question, obviously. So I'll start at the top with the detention supervisor. And typically in the pay scales that I've seen, you usually have a 5 to 7% split, sometimes up to 10 when you have steps. So you have a supervisor, a sergeant, a deputy, patrol, so on and so forth. But there's a big inequity here of the differences between those splits. Can you explain that to me? Because as I look at the deputies, one of the things that Commissioner Lindsay and I 2 years ago, when we put that money forth, was we wanted to give these guys a livable wage to where we're not losing them all
Right.
the time.
Yep.
And when you have I mean, there's 12% from sergeant to supervisor, and I'm talking detention, and then I'll go through them. Then you have a 15%, and it just keeps getting greater and greater. So that's a question, just asking.
Sure.
And then as you go down to the commander, which you've combined that position, so you're increasing that now to 74.5. But then you have a 15% step to sergeant, and then you have a 24% step from deputy to sergeant. And those are really the guys that are out on the street. Am I correct in that? The patrol sergeant, patrol deputy,
Yes,
and your division commander, the way you have it combined now, is the supervisor over that.
over two
Those
divisions and a
people,
drug
yeah.
task force. Yep.
So I guess why, I mean, my question there is why such a separation? Why such a division in that split? Because and again, I'm just looking at other pay plans,
Right.
you know, anywhere from 5 to 7 as that step, and that's a lot of difference.
With those sergeant positions and whatnot, you have to have a first-line supervisor on every one of these shifts, whether it's in the detention center or on the road,
Mm-hmm.
okay? There's a lot of vicarious liability that goes along with that in order to reduce our liabilities and making sure that these reports, the evidence, everything that is done, whether it be in the jail or whether it be on the road, is supervised properly with that. As far as the patrol deputies in that patrol division, and compared to the deputies in the jail, those are certified, post-certified peace officers. There's a difference there.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm talking,
Sure.
and I get the difference between detention and patrol.
Okay.
I'm just saying the split between the steps is what I don't
Sure.
quite understand, because, yeah, no, I totally get that they're certified deputies to non-certified deputies.
Right.
I'm just saying, to me, it seems like an inequity that we are 15%, 24%, 19% different in those steps. So in other words, the guys, so we'll talk about deputies on the street, we're not, to compete with La Plata County, to compete with the city of Cortez, we'll never get 100% there, but
Nope.
with those big of a split between the top and the bottom, we're not keeping the guys on the street, and that's what you guys brought to us 2 years ago, and that's why we said, well, let's put more money to that. So if you keep these steps that far apart, we're not gonna keep patrol deputies.
Well, and I understand that. The thing is that I'm starting out with where those sergeant positions, where they're at currently. And this isn't that much of an increase of what they're making today. So in order to do that, I would have to lower the first 3 years down, which I could, where it wouldn't be such a great separation. And I looked at that, and that's a possibility. But after that fact, you're going to have those that have been here for anywhere from 3 to 18 years that have such a spread in their annual pay. That's the big difference. And trying to start to where it's fair in the beginning is what I tried to look at with that.
So then, okay.
Are you still having a big turnover, Steve?
What's that?
How many deputies, like, have you lost in the last year to one of these other municipalities or stuff?
6?
6?
About 6, yeah. Yeah. I just lost 2 last month. So one was a division supervisor and one was an ag deputy.
They just go into other local?
Yeah. They're moving on. They can make more money and have better benefits, which I can't blame them. I understand. We can only do so much here,
And I guess
you know.
I guess that's my point is I
Yeah.
feel that still, that if we move those, so we'll talk division because it's at the top of the list.
Sure.
Detention, I'm sorry. And
Okay, so
if we
detention-
only had a 5 to 7% difference between the detention supervisor and the sergeant, by the time you get to the deputy, it's gonna move them up significantly, so we're giving them a livable wage, because we have enough money in there to do that. That was our whole purpose 2 years ago when we looked at this.
Yeah,
So if we approve this pay scale the way it sits right now, in that division. Your deputy's gonna start, and I realize these are non-certified, so they're not the same as a
Right.
post-certified deputy,
Right.
not guy.
Right.
They're strictly in detention. It's significantly lower.
Well, this is
So
the
that-
starting salary of 43, 046. It is enough. None of it is enough. But that's what turned out with those salary increases from last year. That's what everybody was moved up to.
That's this year,
Yes,
These are
it started
current, right?
January of this year.
or
Yes.
January, right.
So is that our starting point, or should it be more than that?
That's the conversation we're having right now.
I would
because
love for it to be
we
more than
think-
that. Okay.
Well, there are some
Okay.
things that, you know, if we move things around, get rid of some things that
Okay.
are not highest priorities, maybe there is. So I'm gonna go to the detention supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take that on this pay scale, after top out, that person should be making 77,871.
Mm-hmm.
Where right now, we're paying that person 87,292.
That's right.
So it's not reflective of the pay scale.
No, because that shows 9 years. So it's not 20 years out.
I understand that. So
Okay.
what are you doing for longevity? What percentage is that?
There is no percentage for longevity. It's
Well, there
that
has-
one, it's that year increase. So long as their performance valuation is at least above standard and our standard, then that's at 1%. That's all it is a 1% increase.
So then you're adding 1% every year?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's a 1%. I'd like to see it more than that, but it isn't.
Well, longevity is typically never even 1%.
Exactly.
Typically
So-
a 0.5%
yeah.
max.
So
So as
this
long as I
doesn't really-
understand.
I'm sorry, it doesn't really reflect
Yeah.
what the person is at today. Okay?
I understand that, but it doesn't say anything about longevity. This is
No.
based on a 1% increase for the annual performance evaluation.
That's right.
So when you top out, because this shows a 9-year top out,
No, it just shows 9 years. Now, we can work that out all the way to 20, and you can see where that would be. Yeah, that'd be right about where she's at.
so, I mean, that's how, when I look at it, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
ask
That'd
the
be-
question why.
The 20-year would be helpful,
Okay,
if we could.
sure, I can
But
do
if,
that.
if you're gonna use this as a
That's
top
fine.
out, if a
Okay.
top
Yeah.
out scale
It'll be that
of
long.
10,
Yeah, yeah,
if you're gonna say you top out in 10 years or 9 years, that's your max, and then longevity kicks in after that, that's what I'd like to see, not, because this
well,
says nothing
longevity will
about
still only be
longevity.
1%,
Well, then,
right? Is that right?
well,
I mean, as of today,
Well,
there
that's-
isn't any longevity that I know of.
that's what you're saying as of today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there isn't right now that I know of, a longevity for anything after 20 years. I don't
Well,
know.
it's typically after you top out on your pay scale. So
Right.
if you look at this, 10 years, you'd top out.
Right.
So you would get to the 10-year top out,
Yeah.
longevity would kick in after that.
Yeah.
And
She's
that's
at
how
25 years right now, so there you go.
most scales are set up.
Yeah, so that's quite a few years of dedication to this county.
And I'm
Yeah.
not complaining at all. I'm
No,
just
I
trying
know.
to
I know.
understand
I
the
would love to make it
scale.
right, but I'm dealing with the majority of a young agency who have less than 5 years, okay, experience and in this agency. So
Sure.
it definitely is something trying to change. And when I'm looking at other agencies and their pay, I have to first be as fair as I possibly can, because I can't come in here with exorbitant numbers. I would love to, but I can't. I can't justify that
We're
with
not
what
gonna
we
let
have.
you
Okay?
give absorbent
Well-
numbers that we can't fund.
Well, exactly.
we're
I
not
mean,
gonna
it's
do
not
that.
there, so why put it down in black and white when it isn't gonna happen? You see what I'm saying?
So,
Yeah. So if you want to help as a board, give me some guidance of where some of this should start, and you've already told me where it should end, 20 years. Okay? We can
no,
do that.
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
I said, if you're gonna top out at 9 years, your 10th year, you're done, you're topped out, then you show your longevity after that.
Right. But this is not a maximum amount here. It's 9 years of service, that's all. If you want 20 years, I can do it clear to 20.
I think a 20-year pay plan is too long myself. Typically, I It depends on where you're at. They can be 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
There you go.
I mean, if we're
That's
So-
why I
I
did
mean, if
that.
we're gonna top at 10, go to 10, and then,
Yeah.
you know, make a notation that after that's longevity at 1%.
Okay. That's great guidance that I needed from you, okay?
Well,
Because
we're
I'm telling
having
you,
a conversation.
I'm just dealing with where we were at
Okay.
today as of
That'd help me to
January.
understand it better.
Yeah, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that.
And then I also think that, I think the splits are too big.
You mean the split between a deputy and a
Well,
sergeant?
yeah, so I'm gonna call those, yeah, so, again, at detention, you go detention, sergeant, deputy, and that's it. Well, then you have your kitchen people underneath that, and that's, I mean, that's, I don't have any way to evaluate a cook, so.
And I'll tell you, I've got to start, I mean, right now they're making between 50 and 52,000 is all, as a sergeant.
Yep.
Okay? And so you can start it there and work your way up from there. I looked at that, and it's like, I've got some that are close to that. So I'd have to split that out, and I certainly can. But that's what, if you let me, that's what I'll start off with, is just the sergeant's readjustment. Because of where they're at compared to the difference between patrol and detentions, there is a difference. And the training requirements aren't as great in the detention division as it is in patrol.
But you
Or
have them
detectives.
equal right now.
What's that?
You have them equal right now.
Exactly. Because I have, now if you look at
So why are they
detectives-
equal in detention there, but then you move down to the deputy and they're not anywhere close to equal?
Yeah.
How is that justifiable?
Well, the thing is you're looking at what a detective is, and coming from the patrol division, you're looking at
No, I'm
an
talking
increase.
detention.
Okay,
Okay, detention sergeant starts at 63.6, and division sergeant or patrol, if I use the right language, they're the same. So you have a certified deputy compared to a non-certified deputy making the same amount of money. That's my question.
Yep.
When you look right above that to the detention supervisor compared to the division commander, he is a post-certified. He's making more, which I agree with.
Yep.
And here again, I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody, but just like you said, they're not
Sure.
post-certified. So he's making less. That makes sense. But then on the next line item, they're equal.
right.
They're both at 63.6. So there again, I don't understand that.
Okay, so with the sergeant's positions, I looked at what most agencies, most sheriff's offices have. The sergeant pay, doesn't matter where they're at, in whatever division, it always has a starting, and it just goes across the board. So when they get promoted, it's all the same, because you have either certified or non-certified, but you have different responsibilities and vicarious liabilities in each one of those different divisions, completely different,
No, I
completely.
I understand.
And
One's
so putting
detention
them at
and-
the same, okay, is a start for that, so that they're all the same. It doesn't matter. If it's 3 stripes, they start out the same.
Well, is it just as a sergeant? Because if you look at everything else, it's not the same.
Right, nobody else is the
So-
same. Yeah. Not everyone is the same. If you're comparing a non-certified deputy to a certified deputy, there's a difference. Yeah. And I thought you understood that. It's
do.
not, yeah,
I do understand that,
Okay.
and I agree with that, but when I look at the sergeant, they're equal.
right.
Because you just told me that a certified deputy is more than a non-certified.
For the deputy, yes. For the supervisor, you still have those same responsibilities, only in different divisions.
So then why is the division commander and the detention supervisor not the same?
Because the division commander has to take care of 2 separate divisions overall, plus a task force, yes. That's why it's different.
Okay.
Eliminated a detective lieutenant and made that a sergeant.
Okay. Other questions, gentlemen?
So Steve, when you lost those deputies, were they patrol deputies, detention deputies? What were they?
Which ones was that?
You just lost over the last year, the 6 that you lost? Or were they a
You
mix
said-
of?
you
Patrol
said
and-
the ag
patrol.
deputy was
Yeah,
an ag
Patrol,
deputy.
that was
Okay.
patrol. The detective lieutenant, that was certified. The others were 2, 3, 2 other patrol, and the rest were detention. Yeah,
I mean, had they been here a while, or?
they've
they
been
just-
here for up to 3 years. Yeah.
Okay. And to replace them, what's the process to replace them? You look
It-
for certified deputies, or we have to retrain them all the way?
No, a certified deputy, if they're certified, which I don't get any certified officers wanting a job with the
Right.
sheriff's office. They're non-certified deputies. I've got, the jail staff is pretty much full except for a cook. We're still missing a cook. Don't know.
There's a lot of places missing
I-
a cook.
Do you have somebody, you want?
No, I don't.
You better not.
I don't have one to give.
Can I steal one?
You'll have to talk to my wife.
Okay, I will.
Better not volunteer, but you're gonna be in trouble.
I mean, I don't want to work for you anymore, I don't know. But, yeah, so that's where the deputy step-level program has really been beneficial to the sheriff's office, is that the non-certified deputies that have been here for at least 2 years have had excellent performance evaluations and have completed deputy step level 1 and into level 2, have the opportunity to be selected through a testing process and oral board to be sponsored to the Law Enforcement Academy to become certified. The tuition is paid for by post right now under the Rural Law Enforcement Agency Act. And so they pay for the tuition of that. I had 2 last year that graduated in December. They're in the patrol from the detention division now. There are 2 that are in the academy today from the detention center. They will graduate in May. Those will go, they have already requested to be transferred to patrol. So there's 2 for the fall that are scheduled. But it depends on what PCC does with their increase in their tuition and stuff. But it looks like Post is going to cover that as well. So that's where that comes from, because I get more non-certified detention deputy applications than I do anything else.
So I guess to close this up, and we'll go from there, what I'd like to see, you guys gentlemen can chime in at any time, but as the way this is presented, and we know what our budget is, where do we lie, and if you can close the gap of these 12, 15, and 19% between these, I call them a step,
Sure.
or
It's what it is.
I guess it's
a
sergeant,
year.
deputy to
It's a year,
whatever.
Yeah.
What would that increase? Because if we're really trying to retain people, you retain people with wages.
Yeah. Well, there'll be an increase in those positions and a decrease in the sergeant starting to where they should be, okay, or where they're at today. You got to start them somewhere of where they're at.
So this is,
So it
No.
would be a little bit less,
I
but
understand
it would
that.
be probably about mid-grade of what the patrol or what the deputies' positions are.
So, just a total number, you know what each person is paid? And when this comes to us, if you can close that gap,
Mhm.
say it's even 10%.
Sure.
I mean,
Sure,
it's closer than 12, 15, and 19.
okay.
I guess that's because
and
our whole purpose was to retain people, and you retain them with pay, and when you have this much separation within each step, the guys at the bottom, as they're starting, and I assume you start, just like this sets up, if you start tomorrow, you're a new hire, you start at year 1, and year 2, year
That's right,
3, year
yeah.
4. So,
The big hurdle is going to be, and the question of going to be, for example, the detention sergeant that I have that's in the academy now, when he transfers to patrol, he shouldn't start at the very first year. because he's been a 3.5 year sergeant.
He wouldn't
Okay, so
start there.
you've got to move that
You
up.
move the step. So if he's been
Right.
with you for 3
For
years.
how many years?
You
You start
slide
there.
straight up to
That's right.
step 3.
Okay,
You
I'm
don't
glad to hear
move
you
him
say
back
that
to
because
step
that's what I
1.
wanted.
Yeah.
I was afraid that it was going to be the beginning, and it's like, that's too much of a cut in pay.
No, no,
Yeah.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. You don't,
Yeah.
Well-
that's not how a pay plan works.
Yeah.
So if he's been here year 1 and he was with detention, and now he's going through this program to get post-certified.
Yep.
And if it's 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 5 years,
It's more valued.
they slide up because
Yep.
he's
Okay.
been here 5 years.
Okay,
How,
That's what I-
So to promote, he's
Yeah.
he's
Yes.
doing better for himself.
he is.
So if he's at a 5-year sergeant, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right now he's at 64,307. And if you go straight up, that's what I'm saying. What incentive does he have to go from a sergeant in detention to a sergeant as post deputy at the same amount of dollars? I don't get it. That's why I am asking.
Yeah, and that's why I explained that they have those same duties and responsibilities, only different divisions. That's
But he
the
has to
difference.
get one more certification, to go through an academy, be post-certified,
Right,
and he's gonna make the same amount of money. Again, I asked the question,
Yep.
unless you just wanted a change in your life, why would you do it? Because the money is not, it doesn't change.
right. And it
Now,
doesn't change. He
I
can't
will,
take
I
that
will
with.
say, as a detention supervisor, if I went from year 1 to 74.5 to 71.2, well, yeah, I've got something to move towards. It makes sense.
Yeah,
That's why I don't understand that.
yeah. Well, that's why we're dealing with what there was before and trying to adjust that to where it's fair from 2023 forward. And so there was a wide range there in trying to determine that and what is the best fair salary for what they do. And that's why I did what I did with that. So.
so the workload between your sergeants and your deputies are tremendously different.
As far as their duties and responsibilities, yes. The
Yeah.
workload, no. It's the same. Your detentions, and they're just two different worlds. They really are. That is where it's at. I mean, the training is still there for a first-line supervisor in detention as it is in patrol.
Right. You're not gonna get a sergeant to move if he doesn't wanna move, because it's the same amount of money. However, a
Right.
deputy in patrol compared to a deputy in detention, there is a difference.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Big difference. Yeah. Because they're completely different. But you just said that those fees can go up, so that's what I'll do. And I'll
That's
take
what
it.
I'm asking
Yeah.
is, I think the split is too far apart.
Sure. I hear you.
Because like I said, just on the quick math on the patrol side, when you go from 63 to 74, that's a 15% difference. I don't think it should be that far.
Yeah.
But here again, I mean, every person where they're at, and we know how much money we have in there.
Yep.
Are we leaving some on the table? Let's don't leave it. I mean, we have it. Let's pay them.
Okay. I'll definitely use it. Okay, so, well, thank you.
I
That's
think-
what this discussion was about, 'cause
So,
I didn't have a clue.
I think our overall objective, Steve, is to get more people out on the road.
Yes, it is.
correct.
And that's what's happening today. It just takes time.
Yeah.
But they definitely have an increase in pay when they make that move. They do. So, all right, I'll bring it back to you.
And then the next question I have, not related to this, Steve, thank you, is the court security. Since we had,
Yeah.
Judge Plewe in here, I know that it seems like the last 2 years we lost funding for that, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Or we lost personnel. We didn't lose all of the funding. Let me restate that.
Well, we lost the funding for a person, yes.
Went from 2 down to 1.
That they
right?
do. What's
Yeah.
that?
Went from 2 down to 1?
Yes,
But we're
Yeah.
providing 4.
yeah, always have. And they always
So
paid
we're
for 2.
providing,
They always paid for 2.
two, and now we're.
And so really like what the law says is that the county commissioners have to provide, or the sheriff has to provide
provide.
for security at the courthouse. Now, this rural grant funding is basically for counties like ours to help supplement and defray the costs of that. And so, what I would like to see, and what we tried for last year with Judge Walker sort of supporting us, was to get it from 2 to 3, and they cut it from 2 to 1. Now, I hear we've asked for 4. It seems like 3 is a reasonable number to me.
It is.
I don't know that court security grant, at least the way it's worded in the statute, it's not meant to defray the entire cost
Sure.
of the court security.
Yeah. And they keep changing the formula every year. Okay, understand that. And where this county fits within that formula that they create has to do with not only population, but median income, what the property tax is at, and on and on. It isn't what you're actually dealing with, which is really a problem, because when you have 50,000 or more people that go through the doors in that courthouse every year, that doesn't even compare to what some counties have. I mean, Dolores County never had one, and now they do. They have funding now. So it just seemed like they were taking money from one to the other. I don't know.
So as you move forward with that grant, or if you've already submitted that, I don't know.
You have to sign it,
Um,
and so does Judge Plewe. That was sent to you.
Okay.
Yep, that's
So
all.
do we need to add anything else
You
on
can
there?
put your comments and
from the
anything else, you can send a
board?
letter.
What?
Yep.
So
And just
then-
like what Judge Plewe said, I think that's really important. That would help, at least show that the need is here for this. And I really think that it would benefit, because there are some counties that receive this funding that also have sales tax. We don't. So how do you compare those two? That's not fair.
So you said that was sent to me, Sheriff. Who would that come from?
What's that?
You said that was sent to me. Who did that come from?
It's brand new. It's not from DOLA. It is, go to grants, but it's under Amplifil, or
Okay.
Amplifile. It's
So-
crazy. Look for an email
It's a-
address
it's a
from
mess.
Amplifile. You would have never, hopefully you didn't delete it thinking it was spam. So if you did, let us know. We'll get it to you again.
I'll get with Ian, because obviously I'm not gonna sign anything before I, get
Yeah.
it to the attorney anyway,
Okay.
so.
I had to look for it too, because it's completely different, and
But if we can also add some comments and notes in there as far as us as the board, I think it would
Yeah.
be helpful along with them,
Yep.
because
Judge Walker did.
funding 4 positions right now and only getting paid for 1, that's
It
a
is,
tough
yeah.
deal. It's a stretch
Well,
for
and that
us.
grant expires pretty soon. Yeah, I think in
So
June. so.
I'll look for that when I get done here, and
Yeah.
Ian, if you don't mind, I'll get with you and Travis, and we can search it. Okay?
Yeah, okay, appreciate it.
Are you being contacted by the people that are requesting permits to serve alcohol at the fairgrounds?
Yes,
Okay.
wasn't aware that you needed a letter, but now I've got a form letter
Well,
that you
we
guys
promised
will
you
get.
that we would do this.
That's
so-
fine, but yeah, thank you.
That was at your
Thank you.
request, and we didn't sign one before you
Right,
knew
well,
about
well,
it.
let me know, but yeah, now that Jerry says I gotta give her a letter, so I made a form letter especially for.
It can be an
this, okay?
email. It doesn't necessarily have to be a letter.
She'll deliver a letter.
is
She
what
will
it
deliver a
says is
letter
that
with my signature on it.
Before it comes to us to approve, you've seen it.
Yep.
We agreed on that, and we
And I
want to make
appreciate
sure that
that.
it's,
Yeah. All I can tell you is that next month in May are gonna be kickers for events, I tell you. But if there's no alcohol that's being served, I'm not gonna mess with it.
Yeah, it
Just
doesn't
wanna let you
matter.
to know. Car races, I don't think we need anybody out there. Let's see what happens. I don't know. Okay?
I don't think that's in his contract. I think his contract is specific. He has to have personnel out there. That's in the contract.
That's what the contract says, as it's currently written.
That'll be stretching us here. Okay. But yeah, okay.
That's in there. There's
I'll get
been,
somebody out there.
been
Probably be me.
too much trouble out there to not have security out there.
Yeah, but we don't provide security to the carnival, like I was telling Justin. And And there's a lot more people at that carnival when the rodeo's going on than there is at the carnival. But I don't know. I don't, that's a contract that I guess you guys work out. I don't know.
Well,
We actually asked you about that, and it was two people.
Yeah.
well, so do we need to look at restructuring that contract?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the requirement, I think if we're gonna require the promoter to have, to hire law enforcement, then we need to be sure law enforcement can provide it, and if they can't provide it, then, I mean, we can look at alternative options. He can hire private security, or he can hire security, but, I mean, if we're gonna bind them to that contract,
Yeah.
we've gotta be sure that that's plausible. I don't wanna
Yeah.
put the promoter in a situation where he can't
Yeah.
fulfill his terms.
Well, I can tell you that we're called out there almost every year because of fights or whatever is going
We're
on at the carnival.
always called out there, and that's why, as per your recommendation, they had the two
So-
years ago. So,
Yeah. You know, let's just be across the board then. I'm fine with that, if you
so
guys are.
we left that in the contract that he would have the two
Yeah,
from start to finish,
Yeah.
that's fine. Okay.
just because of the issues that were going on
Oh,
out
I
there.
know. At least it's a different promoter.
I think that has a lot to do with it.
Has a lot to
I
do with
think
it.
it'll have a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
However,
It was great. There's been no problems, okay, last year at all. That I'm aware of anyway, okay? I may have just broke our luck, but, by saying that, but,
As a spectator, it's not quite as fun, though.
yeah.
I mean,
What, you went for the fights or the races? Did you go
it's
for
like
the
people
races?
don't go to a hockey game to watch just hockey, right?
Well, I was asking you, if you
I-
went for the
I went-
fights, the
I went-
races,
I
or the
went
wrecks?
I went for the whole thing.
Holy smokes, don't be promoting that. And no, you cannot take alcohol in, okay?
unless you get, yeah, never mind. All right.
Thanks, Steve.
Okay, now, Robert, we'll come back to you, Mr. Dobry. Or do you have a lot? I guess I could get these other two guys out of here quickly. He's here with you, all right, Mel, come on up. I'll get Mel out of here. I'm jumping all over today anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Late enough day, I'm just gonna go home after this anyway.
Not late.
We close here in a little bit.
All right, let's talk about CDPHE, our favorite acronym, Colorado Department of Health and Environment.
Yeah, this is a letter that's gonna come to you every year for signature to verify that we are staying in compliance on the old Cortez Sanitation District's property and the Carver landfill. It's just gonna come every year.
So I saw that, I responded to it, Ian,
Yeah, I think we're fine. I mean, as long as we're in compliance, let's check the little
Check
things
the
and sign it.
boxes, sign it, and
pretty
then get
simple.
it back to them,
Yep.
and it'll be good.
Minus I'm on the contract as being a site owner. I don't want to own a landfill.
That was the position you took. We did get the address changed to it, so it's correct now.
Yeah, I think this is pretty
It's
straightforward.
gonna be a standard letter, yeah.
Yeah.
Now if it'll dry up so we can do something with it.
You should have had it when it was just a lease.
Yeah.
When we leased property for somebody and then we put a landfill under it.
Yeah.
Then try to figure out how you solve the problems. That property was leased for years
Okay.
originally. We bought it from Carver's when I was the commissioner here before.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of
Because
things
they
down
decided
there.
they were gonna go in there and farm it if we didn't buy it, and CDPHE went,
Whoa. I didn't know this history.
yeah,
Wow.
it was not good.
No.
Okay,
Then you have to pay what that landowner wants for the property too,
Yeah.
at that time, in order to get it bought.
Yeah, whenever y'all sign it, just email it to me and I'll get it back up to Jerry Henderson at the state.
okay. Well, as long as Ian says everything is good to go, we can
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
sign
you
it
know, we got to be
tomorrow.
sure that we're representing correctly. And so, Mel, are we good to check all those boxes?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not out of compliance on anything at that facility, so,
Okay,
Good,
all right.
all right,
Good deal.
sounds
Thank
good.
you.
thanks.
We're gonna take about a 1-minute recess while these gentlemen come up, and I'll be right back.
Hey, Bill?
It's all the attachments.
Then we had, basically, they come in, colors, they knew it had a single barrel. So they come and said, we're gonna start farming. Well, we can't have that, you know, so. What a mess. But it's just like the same way with the National Army out there. You know, when they originally, the county gave them the property to put that army on, and signed a deal that if the army went away, it went back to the county. Well, about 6 or 8 months later, they changed it, took that out. Commissioners did. Why? I have no clue. And then when it come up, then they said, my thing or somebody else, they wouldn't sell it. Colorado wouldn't sell it, so we ended up buying it back. So we
Yeah.
have it.
That's for sure. They're going pretty good. About to get busy. The sheriff said.
That's what happened. Nothing more like it.
Send me that email, you and I can sit down. I just got it.
Don sent me an email this morning about it.
Just got it.
I'll just respond tonight. And I'll try to get an email out to you guys if I have time today to finish up the thing. I'll get it out today, and if not, I'll get it out tomorrow afternoon. Because there's some options you guys have. I mean, I assume you guys will just approve yourselves, but you don't have to.
Okay.
I'll run through the options. It's a pretty extensive set of rules. I'm just trying to work it out.
Okay, going to you. All right. Thank you, sir. Are yours is complicated? Ready? Okay.
Ready.
All right. I guess Mel is done now. We'll talk to Mr. Dobry as it relates to the fairgrounds and the solar project.
So hopefully we aren't too complicated, but I did include all the documents, all the submission documents that we will be submitting for the grant. The total amount, including a 5% contingency for the grant, would be $336,112. So that would be the grant. Total project cost would be $448,151, and then the county's portion would be $112,039, and that all of those include the contingency numbers. You guys have copies of the full grant. We've talked about it a couple times when I presented before. I just wanted to see if you had any other questions, and then to submit it, we need official action from the Board of Commissioners.
Which we'll have to take that tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
but
yeah.
At this point in time, I think we're ready to go. We obviously have both buildings. All of the panels will still go on the main building. And then we'll just have to tie in over to the other building, the shop, or I'm not even sure what you call it, warehouse?
Yeah, that's what we're gonna call it, shop, I believe, shop building.
Because those are the two biggest drawers out there for the facility. So, I mean, obviously, we budgeted for it. We have the money there, so we do have that, guys, for our matching 100 and whatever it is, but we have that. Is there any real?
112,000, that's about,
Yeah.
It's about 8 years to recover.
So,
Our cost is somewhere in there. I think you were showing us at 15,689 annually for cost out there.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
15 and change was the cost per year, yeah.
so,
may take a little bit longer than 8 years, but not much.
yeah, not much. It's already
Yeah.
been there since 1983, right? So, hopefully it'll be a lot longer.
It's just, well, never mind.
So,
Get the panels facing in the right direction.
actually, if you look at the drawing, they're on both sides of the roof. Correct? They're still on both sides, or did the updated drawings show different?
You know that I don't know 100%. I do know they're on the south end,
Yep.
and I know they have them on the southwest side. I don't know if they got any on the southeast side.
The original drawing that I saw, they had, for the main building, they had panels on both sides, so they caught all the morning sun, and then when the sun went over it, caught on the opposite side. And for the shop, I think it was small enough they could put them all on this west side, the original drawing. Do you still have that?
I don't have it with me, but I could probably find it.
So,
I got
unless their configuration is changed.
I don't have a copy of that. I don't know that their configuration has changed since
Which,
the original
they're
plans.
gonna put it to the maximum anyway, so it doesn't necessarily,
that one.
but they did have them on both sides of that,
Okay.
that panel.
They're not tracking. They
No.
don't track.
As far as I
They're
know, no.
fixed.
Are
That's
they
what,
are they biphasic or are they single phase?
That's another, I really don't
Okay.
know.
Biphasic is actually a double-sided panel that will collect reflected light, and that roof's white, so it should, but They're a little bit, they're more expensive. those
I think they're
510s.
single phase.
Yeah. I want to say off the top of my head, we're looking at 90-some panels, I think. Is that what we had in our plan? I want to say that was what was in the plans, 90-some
That
panels.
Sounds correct. I could
Yep.
see if I can pull it up real quick.
So
It doesn't really matter. It's
Yeah.
gonna be, created to be a net zero.
The shop,
Correct.
the shop portion is 94 panels, and the arena portion is 252 panels.
Yeah.
Okay.
It goes in, this grant, we should know something, what, by,
So process-wise, that, I'm glad you asked, that's the other part I was gonna tell you about. So, we'll do a site visit with Patrick Rondinelli after it's submitted, probably in the next, I think, month to 2 months, somewhere in that zone. And then, as we move on, because it's a tier 2 grant, so over $200,000, we'll have to go, up and present to, the committee. And then timeline-wise, final timeline-wise, it looks like contracting will be around October. So I would imagine that installation would be the spring,
For 2024.
2024.
Yes.
Yeah.
so,
Which is fine. I mean, I don't think anything that they do is going to really interfere with anything we have out there. You know, it's just gonna come down to the point when we do the power switch. But,
and that's
yep.
That's
So.
pretty typical. They have a lot of work to do before they ever get to there.
Yep.
And it depends on the fall also, you know, when they, if we, do
Yeah,
receive it.
it's weather and supply dependent. Those are gonna be the two things that would create the
Yeah.
timeline. Yep.
Okay. Questions?
No,
All right.
All right.
Do you have an agreement ready since we're talking about the fairgrounds or with the water company or? I don't have that ready. Okay, all right, never mind. I won't talk about anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you, guys.
thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I think we have come to the end of our meeting, gentlemen. That's all that is on our
No,
agenda
you
for the,
missed- you Missed one.
who did I miss?
Second one.
Oh, I had marked it off. Travis, we just went right over you, sorry. Our financial policy discussion.
Yeah, so I reworked this again. I took out a portion, can't remember exactly where it was at. However, it was the portion of recoupment of costs. Bobby Locke had called over and she brought up concern that they give car seats and stuff away, and so we removed that portion. And then obviously the red strikes are what we have removed. I'll just kind of go through this real quick. Got some notes. So if you look at the whole policy, like page 1 through 8 is really definitions and state mandated stuff that we do anyways. We're just codifying it in a policy. So basically, there's probably 8 pages throughout this that really pertains to internal stuff that we do. And the others is the CFRs, which we do anyways, and we have to do. So it looks like a lot, but it's stuff that we're doing anyways. And that but under state law or DOLA, we're required to do. For instance, the reportings on page 10 and 11. Those are mandated. We can't get around that. But what will help is anybody that comes into finance or has anything to do with finance will actually have a document that they can look at instead of trying to jump in with both feet and hopefully they get it right the first time. Luckily, you know, for me, I had Phaedra, so, you know. There was one section that I did have a question about. So page 21. So this section right here, we had it in there, but we took it out. I'm wanting to know if maybe you want that back in there because of the directive that the commissioners have given me 2 or 3 months, 4 months or so ago.
When I read this, I think it should be left in there because obviously, like Ian has brought to our attention, we're the only ones that approve the pay. We approve the scales, just as we discussed earlier today, and a department head or an elected official can't move it without our consent, basically. If you take it out, then they can kind of move anywhere they want to move. That's the way I read it. So I think we leave it in there, but that's just my opinion. I'm asking you guys what you think.
Yeah, I read that. It looks like we should leave it in there.
And then I
When you-
guess,
When you read that whole thing, then every time one of those guys goes up in salary, we're gonna have to approve it?
No, like if we approve the pay scale, we've already,
Yeah,
like
but
the
that's
sheriff's
not-
pay scale?
If you read that thing, I don't think that's,
I think
It says
BOCC approved is
beyond the
ambiguous.
BOCC approved starting wage. So like Steve's pay scale, we've approved the entire pay scale. So if he moves within that pay scale, he can do that. So a 1-year person to a 2-year person, he can move. Is that how I'm reading it, Travis?
well, yeah, kind of. I think there was a
says
situation.
neither shall compensation for permanent employees be increased beyond their pay scale step plan for years of service with the county and performance evaluations. Any
Correct.
adjustments for a starting salary or increase in salary must have prior approval by a majority of the Board of County Commissioners.
So the way, exactly, so employee be increased beyond their pay scale step pay plan. So if he's gonna go beyond the step pay plan, has to be approved by us.
Correct. So I think the situation arose
Read it 2 ways.
when an employee was first hired, but they got hired at the max. And I was informed that I didn't have that authority to approve that. So that's why we put that in there.
So if they were hired at max and they're a first-year employee, unless there's some kind of a lateral, they should start at step 1.
You can read it 2 ways. I think it needs to be defined a little bit better if you can.
Because the one that came to us last time was outside the pay plan.
Right.
That's why we said it had to be approved by us. Which is what we just talked about today.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I agree with you 100% if you leave that last sentence off. But when you just read that last sentence, you have to, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I'm reading it wrong, but to me, that last sentence shouldn't even be there. We don't need it.
Yeah.
Because it's all within the pay scale.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
pay scale. Anything that's outside of that, we can do. But,
Right.
you know, for me to read that, read the last sentence, we're gonna approve everything.
No, that's why that's why
Yeah,
we're looking at a
that's-
pay scale and we're done.
Yeah, so leave that last sentence off. Okay? I mean, that's my opinion.
I can live with that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it clarifies it better for me anyway, because I think that otherwise
That's why I asked the question, how can you're already paying more than what your pay scale says. So if you're doing it outside of that, it should be listed as longevity within the handbook to say it's gonna be a 0.5%, 0.75%, 1%, so that everybody knows. Otherwise,
yeah.
3 days out.
that's what I'm saying,
Well,
it's
it
all.
should be
over
right
the
on
place.
that pay scale thing, that's what happens after, because basically he gave us a 10-year deal, because he starts, and then year 1 through 9, so he gave us a 10-year deal. That's 10 years, but
Outside of that,
outside of that, he needs to explain what happens after that.
Yeah. what he presented doesn't.
Yeah, that 1% thing should be on there, if that's what he's gonna do.
Okay. Does that make sense, Travis?
Yes,
Okay,
we're getting closer.
I think so. Got to ask one question about property.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he'll be back.
Okay.
Maybe it'll resolve itself here in the next week or two.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right, anything else, gentlemen? Anything else, Travis?
No, sir?
Okay, then I guess we are adjourned, gentlemen. Thank you all.